And our first keynote speaker has been involved with coaching for almost all her working life. Ali Oliver started out as a PE teacher, but many of you will know her in different roles within the Youth Sport Trust. And now as Managing Director, she's the right person to set the scene for coaching within schools. Ali.
Thank you, John, for the welcome. I've got to say, I was so excited this is an all-day breakfast, but I'm still waiting for my fried bread. I'm going to appear at some moment. I think the last time I had that was in a Little Chef somewhere. Anyway, thank you, John and Sports Coach UK, for the invitation to be part of today. I'm absolutely delighted to have a bit of time with you this morning at what is, I think, a real moment in time for coaching children. Always been crucially important, but there are quite a few things aligning for us at the moment, which mean this could be one of the key points in history, I guess, for the evolution of coaching children. And I just want to congratulate and thank Sports Coach UK and Greater Sport for their support in organising today. There has been lots of debate, certainly in conversations I've been part of, about the role of coaching children, and particularly in light of the primary premium, in terms of what's the right role for coaches working with young people, particularly young people in primary schools. So it's the right time to do this, and thanks so much for showing the leadership that you have done, Sports Coach UK. And I guess in thanking people, I should also acknowledge thanks to all of you who've driven, I think, through horrendous traffic by the sound of it and pouring rain to get here this morning. Your presence shows your commitment and passion for what is such an important job in terms of the future of the next generation. So thank you for your time. For those of you that haven't heard of the Youth Sport Trust, just a 30 seconds on that. We're a charity. We've been around for about 20 years, and we've, I hope, developed our reputation through supporting particularly schools, but also governing bodies and other partners to be creative and innovative in the development of sport for young people. And our passion is being creative and innovative so that we can squeeze every ounce of value out of sport for young people. We are passionate about the contribution that sport can make to young people's development, and that sort of sums up what we do as an organisation. And I think it's really important when you talk about these lofty claims about sport, to remember that it isn't just get them in and suddenly children become better at teamwork, they become better communicators, they show more respect. I don't need to tell you that just simply doesn't happen. Just taking part doesn't bring all of these benefits. Our research has shown that roughly only 10% of children will access those sort of benefits naturally, automatically. The rest, the other 90%, only see the benefits and the power of sport because of high quality teaching and coaching. So for us at the Youth Sport Trust, with a mission about sport changes lives, helping and trying to support as best we can anybody who's working with young people to maximise the power of sport to change their lives is so important. Okay, before we get on to the potential of sport, let's just reflect for a minute what it's like to be part of the young generation today. I'm looking around the room, don't mean to offend anybody, but a few of us are a little bit away from that young generation in terms of our own age, me very much included. But they're living in an era where we've probably got the most efficient society in terms of you don't need to put much energy in to get anything out you want. Everything is remote controlled or made user-friendly. We're living in a time when entertainment for children is predominantly static. They don't get up and be active to find their entertainment. In fact, they sit as still as they possibly can, and that gets them the most entertaining experience. They're living in a time when our diets have never been worse. High fat, high sugar, high salt, and the consequences of that on their physical well-being are significant. And then, of course, the physical and social environment really doesn't make it all that easy and safe for them to get out and play and be free to exercise themselves. So we mustn't forget when we talk about this moment in time, yes, there's the primary premium, yes, there's investment which creates demand for coaches, but the whole purpose of sport really needs to be positioned when we're talking about young people in the context of their lives and what contribution can it make. You'll have seen from a slide so far that I don't go into putting lots of text on my slides, so this will be the only one with loads of writing on it. But I think the list of evidence there justifies putting so much text on this particular slide. You only have to look at it, don't you? Well-being, bullying, gender inequality, body image is huge as an issue for the young generation at the moment. And of course, obesity and that terrible statistic that certainly we at the Youth Sport Trust look at in despair on a daily basis, that when those children come in at reception, a fifth of them are already overweight or obese. The tragedy is by the time they leave at year 6, that's gone up to a third. So things are not particularly bright in terms of the young people's lives, although I think they could be very bright through your help and the work of coaching children. So, I know this is probably preaching to the converted, and many of you get this and live it out day by day in your work, and thank goodness you do, because there is no more important thing to do. But for the Youth Sport Trust, this is our touchstone. This is our raison d'etre, why we're there. And particularly in the context of education, there are some important lessons or bits of evidence I'd like to just take a moment to share with you. We were fortunate enough to work with a network that ended up being 500 specialist sports colleges through the late 90s and early 2000s. And between 2006 and 2010, those schools showed rates of improvement in GCSE A to C grades, including English and maths, which were higher than any other specialism. So there is a really strong argument, conclusive evidence, that schools that put PE and sport at the heart of the education process can absolutely make a difference to the outcomes of those young people, and outcomes that are really important to schools and school leaders as well. Not only that, interestingly, through the same era of the old PE school sport club link strategy and the PE and sport strategy for young people that followed that, there is a statistically significant relationship between attainment at Key Stage 2 and membership of a school sport partnership. So the longer schools were in a school sport partnership, the greater the impact on attainment at Key Stage 2. So perhaps a couple of useful statistics for you there to just keep in your back pocket should you need them. And while I'm on that, a bit of evidence, you might know that after 17 minutes of sitting still, your brain function starts to slow down. So that was my reminder just about keeping on time, because I'm probably losing you already. Okay, so a moment in time. I talked about this at the beginning. Yes, John in his introduction talked about the impact of the primary premium, and we can't deny that. That has shunted this agenda right up there in terms of priorities. But it's not just that, okay? We mustn't forget all of the other stuff, which is the context to your work, and particularly if you're working in schools. So the inspiration of major events. Youth Sport Trust research shows that even now, 2/3 of young people in education are still inspired by London 2012. So we haven't missed the boat. And we've got the best possible lead in, haven't we? Commonwealth Games next year, Rugby World Cup the year after. Major events is there as a big inspiration. And I want to just put the question to you about how do you think about these major events when you're working with children and when you're coaching? How are you capitalising on that? Primary sports premium, brilliant. £150 million a year ring-fenced into primary physical education and sport. Huge, huge investment. Couldn't come at a more important time in the hangover from London, and of course is positioned at the right level with our primary age children. But, and there is a but, at the moment, as you all know, it's only guaranteed for 2 years. So the focus of that investment cannot solely be delivery. We cannot solely see this £150 million a year just going into more hours of coaching for more young people. Not to say that isn't worthwhile or worthy, absolutely is, but my God, we've got to use these 2 years to create a step change. We've got to see this investment as a chance to build capacity in our schools, improve the quality of physical education and school sport, sell in the benefits of sport at the heart of schools for all those reasons I talked about earlier. So that then, God forbid, should the funding only be there for 2 years, we can all put our hands on our heart and say, well, we made a difference when the opportunity was there. And that thereon after, hopefully demand for children's coaching will still continue to be there because we will have proved its worth and its value. New national curriculum. Again, I'm sure it's probably not at the top of your list of things to be aware of, but I would encourage you, if you're working within a school environment, to be cognizant of it. The new curriculum is much thinner, which arguably gives schools much more creativity and opportunity to be flexible to meet the needs of their young people. The challenge is, again, where we haven't got specialist PE teachers at primary level, or perhaps where there are not such high-quality practitioners at secondary, there is also a risk that PE becomes synonymous with sport, and all we get delivered in the curriculum is different sports, not physical education. And of course, while in the short term, if you're a cricket coach or a rugby coach or an athletics coach, that might be appealing, that there's an opportunity for you to get in there and contribute to the curriculum. Believe me, if we lose physical education from the curriculum as a core subject, and remember that's the only entitlement that young people have to learning how to use their bodies and feel comfortable with their bodies and be active, the outlook for children's coaching is not that great, because we will see the demise in the physical literacy levels of children even more, and perhaps the attitude for sport and well-being. So see it as an opportunity. If you looked at the last Ofsted inspection beyond 2012, a couple of things really highlighted. They highlighted that very few children are actually competing well and on a regular basis at a high level. So there is a need for your expertise, particularly in school sport and particularly alongside teachers, in supporting them to enable children to enjoy competition and challenge themselves to be the very best they can be. Equally, Ofsted pointed out that schools are not doing so well at catering for those overweight and children at risk of obesity. So if you're a coach sitting out there with expertise or a desire to develop your expertise in working with the least active young people, again, there is definite work for you to do in supporting teachers, but it is supporting teachers. Same with school games. Now just under 16,000 schools active in the school games. Interesting things for you to reflect on. 38,000 young disabled pupils and pupils with special educational needs are now competing at level 2. The Games has done a great job of actually forcing schools and practitioners to make sure that opportunities are accessible for all young people. But there then becomes a challenge for you when you're working in schools that you're going to be working in an environment where there are more young disabled pupils in the session, and even again into community sport. The school games in the last year has led to the establishment of 1,000 new clubs on school sites and 4,000 new school club links. They wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the great work of a number of coaches who've supported school games organisers and schools to prepare more children to take part in competition. Change for Life Sports Clubs, 6,500 of those now. And in the next 2 years, they will be priority focused in areas of greatest need according to the national child measurement data that is around. So they won't be everywhere. They will be particularly targeted in certain communities. But they are being innovative. They are delivered by healthy lifestyle coaches. Coaches who've got a greater understanding of young people's well-being and use the context of sport as a place where we can educate young people about health and well-being. So not just getting them active, helping them enjoy it, helping them feel engaged, but while they're there, important messages that they might need to learn about everything from hydration to diet to getting the right sleep and rest. All things that sadly the current generation coming through our schools perhaps aren't getting that education anywhere else, and sport has an important role to play. And then, of course, I think last week, Sport England celebrated the 1,000th satellite club and the ongoing growth of Sportivate. So children's coaching is not just confined to the primary premium. There are opportunities all over the place. But what are the key messages for you as children's coaches? We use this slide quite a bit at the YST, and I apologise if some of you have perhaps seen it before. But look at each of those segments. There is a role at the moment for a children's coach in every single segment. But it won't always be the same role that the coach is playing, and it absolutely won't be always a delivery role and a delivery capacity. So if we look at PE, what head teachers are telling us, we've met about 4,000 in the last 4 months around the primary premium, and what they are telling us is they want to be able to put sport at the heart of their school, so it impacts on teaching and learning, behaviour, well-being, closing the gap for those young people who are not keeping up with attainment. Those are the issues they want to focus on. That is not going to be achieved by simply outsourcing their provision. The minute they outsource provision, it goes away from being at the heart of the school. However, there's a difference between outsourcing and schools inviting in expertise that can help them as a school, that can bring ideas and innovation and competence and expertise. So if you are approaching schools who are interested in you working with their curriculum, my plea to you would be absolutely go there. But go there with a mind that you're not going in to deliver PE. You're going in there to help the school be more innovative, more expert, more confident among its classroom teachers in delivering PE. Because that way, in 2 years' time, you can put your hand on your heart and say, we made a difference to system change. We didn't just get more bums on seats, which in 2 years falls back to where we are now. Healthy and active lifestyles already flagged that as a huge area of opportunity. And body image is becoming one of the most significant issues, particularly top end of primary, bottom end of secondary age. But if you're a coach working with the least active, your role there is absolutely to engage and inspire, but to educate. Lifestyle change has to be the outcome of the coaching process, not just competence in sport. And then obviously school sport into community sport, loads of opportunities. You know, school games, Sportivate, satellite clubs. There is a growing demand for high quality children's coaches. But it is important that you as coaches, if you're going to work at the interface with schools, take a little bit of time to understand things like the school games and Change for Life clubs. So when you go in, you're going in to a world that the schools understand and you can relate to. So Change for Life clubs, for example, is all about clusters of sports. It's multi-skill based, some brilliant innovative work from governing bodies. But if you're being invited in to support a Change for Life club, please take the time to understand it. And hopefully the Youth Sport Trust website and us indeed beyond that will be happy to help. And I wouldn't be doing my job at the Youth Sport Trust if I just didn't take a minute to challenge you potentially around your role in young coaches. In the last 10 years, got Sports Leaders UK, Linda's here in the room, youth sports leadership has been a revolution in education. There are, if not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of young leaders, young coaches, young ambassadors, leaking out of our schools in all directions. They are empowered, they are brilliant at relating to younger children, but they need support. They're not the finished article. So again, if you are working with schools or even in youth sport, I would ask you to think about your role in relation to the next generation of coaches, because this is a really exciting generation coming through, a generation who kind of get today's lifestyles, but actually many of them we have the pleasure to work with have a real understanding of the how-to coaching skills. And I know Dave Haskins is going to talk later about connection in your coaching, but these young people really understand how to relate to other young coaches. So to finish, I guess I'm going to pick up exactly on what Richard said. People make the difference here. Sport is a people business. That's what it comes down to. And while politicians can influence strategy and funding, and they can create new demand, what's important is the quality and relevance of the supply chain right now. That's what we need, and that comes down to people. So just to lighten the mood at the end, you know, regardless of what era you come from, I love this picture. Not least because that's clearly the PE teacher doing some horrendous gymnastics, but the child that's running up already to go, that poor child sitting on top of the box, goodness knows what happened. So whatever your era, whatever your nation, let's put children at the heart of what we're trying to do. Let's get to a place where we understand their generation, because by God, they really deserve it. And every good presentation finishes with a quote, so I'll finish with this one. It's not strictly from a coach. It's actually from Coach Carter, the film, if any of you are obsessed by it like I am. But for me, those could be the outcomes of high-quality coaching. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Ali. for that uncanny knack of being able to have the overview and drop down into the detail where it's relevant. I think Ali's confirmed that it's an exciting time, but she's been totally realistic about the challenges which we face.